I don't care if you're blue, brown, black or yellow. Are you a competent politician? The language is Israel has the right to defend itself, but why does nobody else? If you can't tell, I get so excited to talk to you guys. But welcome back to It's That Deep, the podcast. I'm your host. My name is Feyisara, and this is a podcast where everything is that deep, from politics to television to pop culture to current affairs to religious affairs to gender. I don't know, everything's that deep over here. And we have a good time. We have a good time of deep, meaningful, and hopefully introspective conversation. And you know what? I've been thinking about my baby. I've been thinking about It's That Deep as of late, and the fact that there is not much like it out there in the way of podcasts within my community. That's no shade. I just feel like nobody's doing it like us in terms of whole rounded, well-rounded, holistic conversation. It's a travesty, some of the content that is out there. And I just hope that I'm able to offer an alternative. And if you've been rocking with me from episodes 1 to 29, I think I've done that. Let me know if I haven't, But I think we're achieving it little by little. So thank you so much for joining me for another episode. We are in Black History Month, which, to be honest, I'm going to be so deadly honest here, I forgot. I also forgot that October 1st was Independence Day. I did not celebrate it. I didn't mark it. Didn't really mean anything to me. Probably the same with Black History Month, which we're going to get into. But yeah, some interesting themes in this episode. Let me not waffle too long. I want to jump right into it because I think it's going to be a good one. So sit tight. You can literally get a cup of tea now because it is actually dreadful weather. So get that cup of tea or glass of wine. I don't know. Get a snack. I don't know. Maybe you're in the gym. Don't know what you're doing. Maybe on a walk. My friends tell me that they listen to this when they're on their walks and in the gym. So whatever you're doing, just get comfortable, get your mind ready. I think this is going to be a great episode. So let's lock in. All right, let's get into our first honourable pick. And it has been a minute since I talked about any kind of British politics, pretty much since the election. But much is happening in the Labour Party at the moment. We've had a lot of defections, like a lot of people leaving, either joining other parties or choosing to become independents. I think I might do like a review on Keir Starmer's first 6 months in power. However, it's not looking good, bruv. It's not looking great. And that's both internally within his party, within Parliament, and then also, of course, with the electorate. But I want to talk about the Tories because they are currently picking their leader. They're picking the person who will replace Rishi Sunak. I think by the time this episode is out, I'm not sure where they will be. I think they're like in the last stage of voting. But let me tell you who the contenders are as of today, the 4th of October. So we have Robert Jenkins. Why did I say it like that? Robert Jenrick. Of course, we have Kemi Badenoch, rolls eyes deeply. We have James Cleverly, and we have Tom Tugendhat, which I really hope I said correctly. If not, I'm so sorry. But those are the 4 contenders. In the previous round, we had Priti Patel, who got knocked out. There's another guy whose name I've forgotten that got knocked out. But these are the last 4 that are pitching to become Tory leader. And we had the Tory party conference just a week gone, and they all put their pictures in and they made speeches about why they should be Tory leader. I'm naturally a Tory hater, but they're all really like uncharismatic and very boring to look at and very boring to listen to. So I did that for you guys. I listened to all of their speeches and everything they had to say. I've been listening to a few interviews as well. They're deeply boring, but of course, in true It's That Deep hater fashion, I want to talk solely about Kemi Badenoch because there's been a lot of commentary around her, which I find quite interesting, but also I found has made me somewhat frustrated, and I'm not sure why. Like, of course, she is the only woman left in the race, and you would think that wouldn't be a big deal because we've had Margaret Thatcher, we've had Theresa May. Did we really have Liz Truss? I'm not sure I can say that, but we've had female prime ministers in a way that the US has not had presidents. So I don't really know why that's a big element of this race, but an even bigger element of this race is of course her race. And I found that has clouded much of the commentary around her, much of the discussion around her, and I think actually what's frustrated me more than anything is that it's actually come from black people. And I don't know how to feel about this. There's been loads of comments about like, oh, they'll never accept you, keep tap dancing for massa, you're a sellout, this sort of rhetoric, right? About like she's not for black people. And I find myself being frustrated with this line of commentary because I'm like, this is gonna sound crazy as well. But I'm like, why does she have to be? No, it sounds crazy. And probably like a contradiction of things I've said previously. However, I don't understand why, A, there is an expectation for her as a black woman to align her views with the rest of the black community. Because the language about like, oh, you're a sellout, oh, they'll never accept you, in the reverse implies that there's a standard by which black people live their lives and she's not meeting it, or she's subverting it. That would imply that black people are monolith, which we know we're not. So I don't understand why people are using her race as a qualifying factor for why she should or should not be a Tory leader, or why we should or should not hear her out. I think the basis by which we hear any politician out should be their competence. Like, are you competent? Are you able to do your job? It's kind of similar to the rhetoric that they're throwing around about Kamala Harris right now in the US. And I believe I've said it, like, I don't care if you're blue, brown, black or yellow. Are you a competent politician? Do you have a desire to meet the needs of the people within your constituency? Then we can talk. I really don't care if you're black. I really don't care if you're white. Me, everything, including her race, is secondary to whether or not she's a competent politician. Because actually, my focus is like, yo, she's said some crazy things in her leadership campaign. She's talking about maternity leave is too much for new mothers. She's made some really horrible comments about migrant workers, people who are doing bottom barrel jobs that British people don't want to do. She's always used this really interesting, what do I call it? Like, very interesting language when it comes to culture, and British culture and invaders of British culture and people who are anti-British culture. She used to use all that language even during the election. That concerns me. Like, that's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about the fact that she uses Thatcherite language, and she's referenced, Thatcherite politicians in some of her speeches, and she's clearly looking to lean that way in terms of that really heavy-handed state. That concerns me, not the fact that she doesn't align with my beliefs as a black woman, or that she doesn't toe the line when it comes to issues of race. And this very well could be a contradiction of things I've said previously, but the more the older I get and the more I read, I guess, and the more I form my opinions, I'm like, what does it matter? She's a black person who has a different opinion to me as another black person. Stop the world, stop the press. Like, it just really doesn't matter to me. And I just found it interesting that is where we're choosing to place our focus, not the majorly horrible things she said or some of the quite dangerous and right-leaning sentiment that she carries. I can't believe I'm even out here defending a Tory, but I think it's something worth thinking about because, white men just get to white men in politics. They get to just show up, and the focus of their work is their work. It's not looking at it from a lens of them being white or a lens of them being men. It's just the policy they've put forward. And it's frustrating that that's not a privilege that's afforded to other demographics. Like, a woman can make a law and everything has to be viewed through the lens of her womanhood. And it's like, she might just believe this. She might just really stand behind this legislation, but it has to be viewed through the fact that she's a woman. And it's necessary in some cases, don't get me wrong, but all the time it is exhausting. And it's especially exhausting because we don't do it to white men. We don't do it to those who are at the top of the political ladder or top of societal ladder or whatever you want to call it. And so I found myself becoming more and more like, well, why do we do it to ourselves? I don't like Kemi Badenoch off of the basis that I think she's I can't say that on this podcast, but I don't like her. Not off the basis that she's a black woman who I think should think like me. I don't care about that. There are reasons that I don't like her that have nothing to do with how she looks. And we almost sort of sometimes play the white person's role when we say, oh, you're black, so you must think like this, or you must operate in this way, or you must have this opinion. And I think that's wrong. I think it's false. And I think, you know, some deep introspection would really do us good I'm talking to the black community now, like as a black community, to be like, well, why do we think this has to be the case? I very may well turn around and say something completely opposite on another podcast, and I'm not afraid to say that my opinions fluctuate, because I do understand why we would want black politicians in power to make policy that's beneficial to our community. But I think want and expectation are two different things. Wanting that is actually very normal. Expecting that or feeling entitled to that is somewhat naive when we're in a world where people have so many different opinions. So I think I'm landing on like, don't expect anything, because you're only going to be disappointed. So as I said, I forgot that it's actually Black History Month. And you know what? I don't know. Maybe I'm coming to a quarter of a century in a few months, and maybe I'm having a quarter life crisis. I don't know. But I find that a lot of my opinions are somewhat changing and are not what they were a few years ago. And one of those opinions is about Black History Month. I don't care for it. What's the point? I don't think it's necessary. I don't celebrate the fact that we've been apportioned 1 month, 4 weeks to celebrate Black history in the UK. A Black history which is so pervasive and so culturally impactful and has been so significant in the formation of this country, culturally, economically, politically. I don't care to squash all of that into 1 month and celebrate that we're doing that. It just, like, why would we do that? I just think it's ridiculous. So I'm not really one for Black History Month. Same way I'm not really one for like Women's Month. These things are all just farces to me. And I'm just like, what are we talking about? You're telling me that the moment it strikes 12 o'clock on November the 1st, that's it, we're done. Uti Pari? No more Black history. Like, what are we talking about? Ridiculous. But I was having a conversation with my friend, and we're both, you know, freelance creatives, and she was telling me about a TikTok where this babe was basically complaining about the fact that it's like Black History Month, and this TikToker must also be a content creator, freelancer type person herself. But she was basically saying like she hasn't heard from any brands, she hasn't been reached out to by any brands. She's like, I should have been hearing things in August, July, October's here, haven't heard anything, no meetings, no activations, no campaigns, what's going on? And we had an interesting conversation, my friend and I, about it, because I just felt like, why are you pressed? So my friend was she was like, I get it, like, it's Black History Month, why are brands not looking to collaborate with Black creators? But for me, I maybe I'm repeating myself with the first honorable pick, but I don't feel entitled for that to happen, if that makes sense. I'm a presenter. I present, you know, live events, live shows, movie screenings, all the sorts, right? Like, if a brand came to me and they were like, oh, Faye, we want you to host a panel at Facebook on our behalf, and we'd love to talk about all things, you know, Black culture and diversity, that makes them look good, because they look like a brand who's championing diversity and inclusion, and they look like a brand that's bringing on Black creatives and they care about the cause. It's not beneficial to me. Well, it is in some degree, but the degrees of benefit are not the same. And so I'm technically, this is sounding real skeptical, but I'm technically being used as a pawn to push an agenda for a bigger brand, a bigger corporation, whereas I don't get much out of it except another panel to host, which is all great practice, which we all thank the Lord for these opportunities. But in the grand scheme of things, what does that do for me the other 11 months out of the year? You know, I think back to Black Square Summer, if that's what it was called, after the murder of George Floyd, And I think the issue actually is that we as Black people do not know the power that we hold, either as a consumer or a creator. I was talking to my brother this week, and we're quite similar. He's doing a video essay on TikTok about how Black women created the influencer economy in the UK, and he's damn right. Black women created what we know to be the influencer economy. They were there before the Molly Mays of the world. Who's the other? I don't know any other white influencers, guys. I'm really sorry. But they were there. The Patricia Brights, the Jenny Jenkins, the Shirley B. Yangs. They have existed before Molly May was even in uni. Before she was even on Love Island. They were there and they were doing the influencing thing. We just didn't know it as influencing then. And so I think we need to know our power and retain our power, because why we would be going to brands begging for breadcrumbs when actually it's us that made the loaf does not make no damn sense to me. I'm sorry. Even as consumers, like, our pound, the Black pound is very, very powerful. When look at Melissa's wardrobe. Black influence, Black money is very instrumental. They would tell us that, we only make up 3-4% of the UK, blah blah blah, but our Black pound is powerful. And it sometimes feels like we're waiting for other people to validate that, or say, hey, we want to work with you, or we're waiting for these, particular moments in the year to be celebrated and to be honored and to be taken seriously as a creative. And I'm like, bro, why are you waiting? They should be checking for you all year round. Don't wait until it's Black History Month and then get on TikTok and complain that you're not getting any opportunities. I don't know. Maybe it's the kind of person I am. Maybe it's the way I work. I ain't for it. I'm not anybody's charity case. I'm not anybody's little diversity hire or tick box. You're gonna know me, and you're gonna notice my work, and you're gonna celebrate my work from January through to January. So it's a short one. It's a short honourable pick, because my reflections on Black History Month, to be honest, there haven't been much reflections because I'm not interested. I don't care about the month. Like, celebrate me in January, in February, in March, April, May. Like, how about that? Alrighty, so I am activating the spirit of my degree for this main story, because I had to do a lot of reading and a lot of articles, and it's actually quite fun. But I drop my episodes, as you guys know, Sunday evenings. Tell a friend to tell a friend. So this is dropping October 6th, which is a day away from the anniversary of the October 7th attacks, which happened in Israel. And I have many, many, many thoughts on the fact that, first of all, a year has passed, which the year's going very, very, very quickly. But I have been accumulating my thoughts about Israel this entire week. And I think as we literally stand on the anniversary of the Hamas attacks, there's many irregularities and many things that are cause for concern, first on like a, I guess, social, I don't know what kind of level, but like the fact that it's been a year that Hamas attacked Israel, and subsequently Israel have been carrying out a genocide. The fact that that's been happening for a year, and it just feels like we're going about our daily bread and butter. Do you know what I mean? It feels like we're going about our daily lives. And this is so including me. I'm literally not exempt from what I'm saying, but the fact that we're just jollying on, doing as normal, it's alarming. It's concerning that, like, there is an entire nation, whether you believe Palestine is a recognized state or not, there is an entire sect of people who are being wiped off the face of the earth. And, we were all concerned for a few months. Maybe another like missile strike goes out and we're like, oh my God, this happens. The Super Bowl happens, and All Eyes on Rafah happens, and it's all cause for concern. But that dies down after a few days, and then we're all just back to our normality. And I think it's funny that people are often like, people are too sensitive these days. We're too sensitive, when I actually feel we've lost our sensitivity, because how Israel could be committing a genocide for 12 months straight, it's even longer than 12 months, and we're all just kind of not as grieved as we should be, is real cause for concern. I think the news cycle is too swift, and doesn't allow us to emotionally connect with really what's happening on the other side of the earth, as well as many other factors, including social media, including fake news, including not even social media at this point. Traditional media is biased as heck. So those are my initial thoughts, but there's a wider thought that I've been having all week, which is about Israel and why they are such an interesting case on the world stage about accountability and allyship and all these things. And the reason I say this is because although October 7th is coming up, it has not been the focus of any of the news stories concerning Israel, because they are in other entire war with Iran right now. Like I said, I've been doing a lot of reading on this. So I'm going to try explain the situation happening in the Middle East right now in the next 2 minutes. So bear with me. Let's go. So the main players in this conflict, Israel and Iran. Two of them are recognized states by majority of the world. Then we have Hamas, who are a political terrorist group operating out of Palestine. And then we have Hezbollah, who are again, depending on what you believe, political terrorist group who are operating out of Lebanon. But Hezbollah are a proxy for Iran, which means that Iran basically just uses them to fight their battles. Iran doesn't fight Israel directly. They use Hezbollah. Very good. Now, like I just said, Israel and Hamas are at war because of the October 7th attacks. And in light of October 7th, Israel have been attacking Hamas, but they've been sending missiles everywhere but the Hamas base. And that's why I'm calling it, and so many people are calling it, a genocide, because actually they're not targeting Hamas at all. They're targeting innocent Palestinians. Very good. Now, let's talk about April 2024. And again, I will reiterate, this is a very complex history, which I'm not good. It would take, even an hour wouldn't do it justice. Just keep that in mind. So in April 2024, Israel attacked Iran's consulate in Syria, killing a load of their personnel. One of the people they killed was responsible for getting Iran's arms to their proxy, Hezbollah, in Lebanon. So obviously by killing them, that's put the arms transportation to an end. Now, in response to that attack, Iran responded and sent a bunch of ballistic missiles to Israel. But Israel has the backing of the West. So the UK, the US, which I don't even have time to get into because, anyway, they have the backing of the US, UK, France, major Western powers. So those ballistic missiles that Iran sent in response to Israel did nothing. They sort of turned into a stalemate at that point. Not much went on. Israel responded again, but it was really not of much effect. Let's fast forward to July now. In July, the leader of Hamas is assassinated by Israel, because bear in mind, Israel are still at war with Hamas whilst they're still beefing Iran. So the leader of Hamas gone, deaded off by Israel. Then in the week just gone, this October 2024, Israel also assassinated the leader of Hezbollah, Iran's proxy. Now we all know, for those of us who know the scriptures, you strike the shepherd, the sheep scatter. So where the leader of Hezbollah, Iran's proxy, has been assassinated, it's a bit of chaos in Hezbollah right now. And so Iran are very much like, yo, what's going on? So now they've retaliated, literally a few days ago. And what we're seeing is an outpouring of sympathy for Israel. We are seeing, and that's why I paused when I spoke about the UK and the US, because it's like they have come out with, statements of support and they stand with Israel. Keir Starmer made a statement, basically saying that Israel has the right to defend itself and all of these things. And I've just been watching it all week long and I'm like, what is it about Israel that they are exempt from any sort of international accountability, international, what's the word? I don't know. Repercussion. What is it? Because in response to Iran's attack after the murder of the Hezbollah leader, Israel have gone crazy and they have launched attacks in Beirut. They've launched attacks in Lebanon. They are just on a murdering spree. And the language is Israel has the right to defend itself, but why does nobody else? Why does nobody else have the right to defend themselves? And what is it about Israel that makes them exempt from the laws and the standards by which every other nation has to live? I'm not that clued up on the history of Israel, I'll be so completely honest. I'm still doing my reading, still doing my learning, and like I've said, very complex history. But like, what I've seen is the West come out in their, what's the English I can use, in their masses to support Israel, but it's crickets. We don't have anything to say. Palestine doesn't have the right to defend itself. Iran doesn't have the right to defend itself. You know, why? I actually am genuinely curious, and I want to, I don't know, find some articles, or if anybody has any insights, ask me, because I don't know. It's really fascinating me, and it's fascinating to me how power shifts out, or not our, because not me, but like it shifts people's moral parameters. Not only power, but also racism. Because I was reading an article in The Guardian, and it was an opinion piece, to be fair, but you know, somebody was saying like the only reason Israel has the right to defend themselves but Palestine does not is because of racism. Palestine, again, I don't care whether you consider it to be a state or not, but they are a Muslim. There's a stronghold of the Muslim demographic within Palestine. Of course, we know Israel is a Jewish state. I guess that's not racism, is it? That's Islamophobia. But you know what? Islamophobia is also heavily tinged with racism. So there we go. But like, why does power and race make people shift their moral parameters? Like, is this a statement on the nature of humans? Like, are we so fickle as humans that, you know, we see people with a whiff of power and our desire is to align ourselves with them by pleasing them and standing in support of them, even though what they're doing is wrong? Is that so important that it overrides the moral standards that we, you know, were raised with? And so I just, you know, I've been watching and listening and reading, and I'm just massively interested by the world's response to Israel and why they, in a really simplified way, get off the hook. It's like the kids in the classroom who, like, there's one kid who constantly misbehaves, but I don't know, maybe their parent is on the board of governors, and so they just get let off with a slap on the wrist. Everybody else gets detention. Everybody else gets that little bit more of punishment, but Israel goes scot-free. That's kind of the way I see it. That's how I have to simplify things to understand it. But I guess on a smaller scale, right, because that's so macro, on a micro scale, I guess, you know, maybe it's a call. I always like to do a call for introspection, guys, and maybe the call for introspection is where we also do that in our day-to-day circumstances. Like, do we, in situations where we should, I don't even believe in neutrality. I was gonna say in situations where we should be neutral, but in situations where right is right and wrong is wrong, we alter what we believe or what we originally stand by based off of who is in that scenario and based off of our biases towards the people in that scenario. Because I think we do it maybe more than we realize. It may not be a religious thing, it may not be a race thing, it may be preference. Maybe I like this person more, and so for me, even though they're wrong, I'm calling it right, and even though the other person is right, I'm calling it wrong, if that makes any sort of sense. So, you know, this is what I'm saying, like macro, these wider, larger case incidents in the world really speak to individual, personal, small scale dynamics, literally. And so that's what I see when I look at Israel and the world cowering to Israel. It doesn't make any sense. And something I might add, something I might add is that, you know, I find it interesting that the states and the types of people who have made any sort of commentary or condemned Israel in any way, shape or form are those of the East. It was South Africa who raised the complaint against Israel at the ICJ. It's been Eastern states, Eastern countries who have come out and condemned this and said, this is wrong. And I find that interesting because those states are monolithic in terms of demographic. Like South Africa is mainly, South Africa's a different case, but like for the most part, black. They don't have the multiculturalism. So like England does, for example. So room for, and hear me when I say this, because I know what I'm going to say sounds ridiculous, but like room for racism is less of a thing because they're so, like everyone is black for the most part. Again, South Africa was a bad example because literally xenophobia and apartheid, but you get what I mean. I hope that explanation of what's happening in the Middle East makes sense. I hope it's clear. I hope it gives a little bit of context to people who have no clue what's going on. That was me literally a few weeks ago, but I've been doing my reading, like I said. So yes, episode 30. I like that episode. I think that was pretty good. I really enjoyed that. I do want to know your thoughts on Black History Month. I'll put a poll on Spotify and on YouTube, baby, because I am curious to know what other black people think about Black History Month. It's a massive bore to me. I'm just not interested. But thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for locking in, staying tuned, listening. I really appreciate it. 30 episodes. Yar. Yeah, really happy about that. So I'll be back next week for episode 31. Oh, 31 sounds nice. And yeah, we will go again. Everything's that deep, and we'll do it all over again next week. So thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next week.